welcome back to Getting to the Top, where I interview transformational leaders about their leadership journey in hopes that we can either learn something from their journey or inspire you on your own leadership journey. Today, I have a good friend, somebody who inspires me, somebody who has taken me on many journeys and helped me through things that I didn't even think I could have someone with me on. She has been a phenomenal leader, a phenomenal friend, a phenomenal collaborator. She's the managing director of DRT Communications. She's an absolute marketing guru without question. And she's also a mindset coach. And she is somebody who in every way inspires me with her heart, with her kindness, with her goodness, with her genuineness. She is somebody who I won't lie to say I deeply love. So thank you, Danielle, for coming on Getting to the Top and allowing me to interview you. And so, Danielle, please introduce yourself.
I will. Thank you for that intro. I had to do the whole blink back for a second there, Racquel, because in preparing for this interview, one of the questions is who inspires you? And you are always in that list for me. So to hear you say that, it was just, I just needed a moment there to blink back the tears. I am Danielle Terrelonge. I am Managing Director of DRT Communications, as Racquel said, and a marketing business that has operated in Jamaica, serving the Caribbean for over 14 years. I've been in marketing for about 22 of those. Worked with, with the financial in the financial industry, worked in fast-moving consumer goods along the way, and a couple of years ago had a major life transformation, which let me go back to school really to become a mindset coach. Worked with all the major brands, worked with some amazing CEOs, learned a lot along the way, and this actually was what brought Racquel and I together many, many years ago.
Absolutely. And she's also a phenomenal dancer, phenomenal dancer.
Don't tell everybody that.
Listen to me. You see Danielle on a dance floor and you wonder, listen, why is this woman like a professional dancer? She's absolutely spectacular. But she's also, and I won't lie to tell you, she's also changed my life. And this was at the beginning of her mindset coaching journey, but she's absolutely changed my life. So I was telling her I had to work my way up to interviewing her because I just wanted this one to be really good. So Danielle, so tell us how it started. How did it all start? You were in school. What did you think you were going to do?
I actually thought I was going to be a psychologist in my teen years. I wanted to be a psychologist, and sometimes I still think about it. And I think that's where coaching has kind of brought me to a middle ground. But in my teens, wanting to be a psychologist, I went to school, graduated with a degree in psychology and an undeclared minor in business management. And the reason I bring that up is because during university, I had my fantastic daughter, Maya, and realized very quickly that a first degree in psychology did not a psychologist make me. So all of a sudden realized I had to figure out, how to get a job. And one of the most powerful moments in my life was a summer internship. And it was in sales, but I kept going to the sales and marketing manager saying, hey, why don't we do this? Why don't we do that? And he says, that's marketing, right? And I was like, I just have ideas. And he goes, have you ever thought of pursuing marketing? And I was like, no, I've never even done a course. And he said, well, you just, came up with a direct marketing campaign. This was back in the days of when we used to do mail outs, right? Marketing. And I went back to university that semester and did a course in marketing and aced it. Meanwhile, I had always been told, and these exact words were told to me, that I did not have the aptitude for business. And actually, it's kind of funny because it says, somebody who was pretty important in my life at the time. And my girlfriends and I joke about that. Like when something big happens in the business, my girlfriends will text me and say, yeah, I guess you didn't have that aptitude, eh? And it's such a pivotal moment because here's one person speaking over me, speaking over my life, that I have that aptitude. And here's somebody that I'm, very emotionally attached to saying, you'll never make it in business. And then, you know, guess we proved that wrong along, along the way. So, yeah, and so started off with the Jamaica Money Market Brokers Limited at the time in marketing as a junior marketing officer, and then moved on to become the marketing manager of True Juice, a local Jamaican brand of, you know, several different SKUs in fast moving consumer goods. And that was actually, I think, my real foray into leadership, right? And then whilst at Tradewinds, True Juice, at the time, I had this burning in me. I had this desire that I could be a consultant. And I'm here interacting with people like Racquel, who like these amazing consultants. And I'm like, maybe I can't. But it wouldn't go away. And I remember praying about it. I remember asking people, you know, could I do this? What about me leaving my job and starting a business? And people were like, Danielle, are you crazy? No way. Like, you have a child, she's 10. Like, you have a mortgage? Are you nuts? But it wouldn't go away. I remember coming home from church one Sunday and I was like, God, I'm not praying about anything else. I'm not praying about world peace. I'm not praying about anything. I just need to know, should I do this?
What do I need to do?
Feeling, this yearning in me wouldn't go away. And I tell people all the time, as cliche as it sounds, that was a Sunday. And on the third day I rose, and I know it sounds totally cliche, but it was literally Wednesday morning. I woke up like this and I knew, and I drove all the way to work. I resigned. And everybody at that point was like, you have lost your mind. But I just knew. And I tell you this, 14 years later, when it gets tough, when I don't think I can, when somebody else says something to me, speaks negatively over my life, or something just happens and I'm not believing in myself, I go back to that day and I go, honey, you knew then, you know, God spoke to my heart in that time. And I'm glad I've had that faith and kept that faith, because there have been days that I don't have that faith in myself, right? And I go back to that morning that I drove to True Juice and I resigned. And actually, when I resigned, my boss literally offered me house, car, and land to stay, as we would say in Jamaica. House, car, and land to stay, a great offer. And I said, no, I'm doing this. Not one client. And actually, I'll be honest, there's no shame in my game. Negative 500,000 Jamaican dollars in debt. I remember it very clearly. And I was just like, okay, really though, I have to have lost my mind on this one.
No, I remember. And I remember we were both at a bit of a crossroads at that time and sort of contemplating and doing things. And I was like, you know, and you just forged ahead. And I went out and I was like, okay, yeah, I've had my taste. And then I quickly went back and retreated into corporate. But I've been so proud of you on this journey, because I see DRT everywhere. I see the amazing campaigns that you guys have done, you know, the competitions that you've won, the leadership that you provide in the entrepreneurship space. And I think, and the authenticity of your leadership, you know. So when I see your team and they're so happy and they're gung-ho and they're excited and they're charged up, it's all, I think this was always the path you were meant to take.
I think so too. And you can know a lot of that retrospectively, right? You know, people ask me the question, you know, when did you know you were meant to be a leader? And I don't actually have an answer to that question, but I do believe sometimes we are taken into situation, into circumstance, and it's how we show up, right? And I will be, as I say all the time, there's no shame in my game. Anybody can ask me anything about my journey. And I will tell you that in the very first days of leadership, for many years, I was always a leader who was trying. I was always trying to learn. I was trying to read. I was trying to go to every workshop. I was trying to be the best leader. But retrospectively, I don't think I was a very good leader. People leader. I knew how to lead a campaign. I knew how to get stuff done. I knew how to bang, bang, bang.
Great ideas.
Great ideas. Energy out the wazoo. Man, sometimes I wish I still had that energy of a 27-year-old, because this was happening when I was 27, right? Or 28. And I look back and I say, I was awesome in that way, right? But was I the best people leader? And I think in the past couple of years, that has been that refining that part of the journey, and certainly nowhere near perfection. And I don't think any of us ever get to that level of perfection. But if I never ever in my life, I think if I had to identify 3 regrets in 43 years, I would be hard pressed to come up with 3. But I would say that I look back at some of my leadership of people, and I say I learned a lot along the way. I definitely learn a lot.
Give me an example, because I think that has been the toughest part of my journey as well, in that my leadership of people, and you know they say, the saying is, people forget what you say, people may forget what you say, forget what you did, but they'll never forget how you make them feel. And
Absolutely.
and that has stayed with me, and it haunts me, because I absolutely know. I understand that leadership is a journey. I understand that people leadership especially is a journey, and you have to grow into that space. And there's no manual that people give you on day one that says this is how you lead people, and this is how you inspire people, and this is how you motivate people. And I'm reading things now about, well, you really shouldn't even try to motivate people, but you certainly shouldn't be trying to demotivate people. And it isn't ever from a place of wanting to do the wrong thing, but it is about doing the wrong thing for the right reasons, if you understand. So it'd be great if you could kind of unpack your sort of leadership journey for me, because I think that would be really helpful. It certainly would be helpful just for me.
Yeah, for sure. I think, I remember very early out in leadership, I was very insensitive. I was an insensitive leader. And I think what was very surprising for a lot of people is that I was a woman, and we're almost, we're thought of as the nurturers, which we are. But I wasn't very nurturing. Now I can look back at that retrospectively. I grew up with my dad and my dad alone. I didn't have the mom tenderness, right? I grew up with dad who was, get things done and do things right, and lots of fair and stuff. And that was predominantly my example of leadership, which brought some really awesome attributes out, right? Because I could get things done.
Yeah.
But the sensitivity that I think people come to expect, and the nurturing that people come to expect from a woman, I didn't have that in my early days. And I'll tell a story that, just preface it, I'm not proud of this story, but I think it's important. I remember never being sensitive to a woman having her cycle, because I never had cramps. I cried for a day, and I wasn't very sensitive. And I had these 14 girls. They were, the promo team. And as is what happens when women hang out together, our cycles line up. And we had this big execution. And I'm pretty certain it was 7 of the 8 girls were all on their cycle. Wow. And who was having cramps and who was calling out. And we had these, white outfits, and the girls asked if they could wear black. And the black, for obvious reasons, you're on a promotion. And I was just, no, we have set out to wear white for the day. Everybody, and we get things done. And I look back on that, and I'm not proud of it, because the truth is, why couldn't we have just worn black for the, you know what I mean? It just, I was so hard and stuck in my ways that I look back on that person and who I would be now if I was in that position. And I would be, just as I've done with my team for COVID, I'd say, come on, well, we're going to need a vanity pack. Everybody, let's just do a team vanity pack, and everybody has their stuff. And okay, let's go on shorter shifts, more breaks, because people don't feel good on that first day. And so I look back, that's an example of when I was just that nurture wasn't there. And by the way, I look back and I look at the nurturer that I was as a mom, and I'm much more nurturing as a mom now than I was then, right?
Really? Okay.
Yeah, much more. Because Maya was.
You've always been Maya's biggest cheerleader,
Yeah. No, I'm always the cheerleader mom. Come, let's go. I'm the parent when they said, please don't clap or make noise. I'm the one who makes the noise.
They're like, Danielle, please don't clap or make noise. Danielle.
Right, exactly. And but the softer side, is, come on, let's get it together. And as I said, that comes with some very, very good things. But I learned in the past couple of years, my biggest thing that I talk about these days is recognizing that we lead whole people. That I, Danielle, am a whole person. You, Racquel, are a whole person. all 22 team members at DRT, we are whole. And I do believe that COVID actually definitely helped that. We got to see people's lives at home. We got to see their kid, you know, having a meltdown on camera, or their dog yapping, or whatever it was. And I think that was one of the better things of COVID. And as it turns out, I was in training to become a coach at the time. But long before that, or about 2 years before that, I had a hell of a health scare. I got diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. And for those who care to search, you can go on my website, wellbydanielle.com, and read about my journey in my health. And what happened to me was I was doing well. DRT was doing well. We had the contracts, we had the this, whatever, but I was fading fast. That same period, by the way, and maybe there's some Jamaican who watches this that's going to say, you're wretched, you, right? I had a period for 2 years straight. I was unhealthy. I was 222 pounds at 5'1". I was fading fast. I was sick every couple of weeks. I wasn't doing well. And I took my health into my hands at that diagnosis. And because of learning to have grace for myself and how now I needed to show up for myself, I recognized that, you know, I have a team member who says the Danielle of then and the Danielle of now is a totally different person. Absolutely different. Because I learned grace, I learned compassion, I learned to love through leadership, right? And I had learned that actually in my days at GMMB, but I really learned it. And then I learned to recognize that just as I was having my own challenges in life, so were my team members. So were some of them, right? And it's not every day we're going to show up at, you know, 10 out of 10. And neither should we actually require that of people. The most powerful questions that I think we can ask at the beginning of every meeting with our team members: how are you showing up today? Where are you at? Because if a team member says to me they're showing up at a 6, another team member says they're showing up at a 10, we can't treat them the same. And I'm showing up over here at a 6 too, right? I know what to expect of that team. And I say, so what does a 6 mean? What is the best possible version of 6 for you today? And maybe we'll say, what do you think we can do to get you to a 10? Do you even want to go to a 10? Because sometimes the answer is not today.
You can't run on all cylinders all the time. Exactly. That's not reasonable. And I think sometimes, you know, I've had team members who were amazing team members, but they were like wanting to do 10 all the time. And I said, listen, I need you to pull back a little bit, because I will need you to go to a 12. And if you've been going at 10 all the time, you cannot push to a 12 because you have nothing left. So I need you to kind of dial it back sometimes. Not everything is a crisis. Not everything is an absolute emergency. And I think one of the things that has helped me is like identifying, listen, I have a 4-year-old. So sometimes I am up working at 2 o'clock in the morning, and I may send you an email at 2 o'clock in the morning. And that one is, it's not a regularity for me. It's a one-off. But 2, I'm not expecting a response from you at 2 o'clock in the morning. And if you get up and you're responding to me at 2 o'clock in the morning, I think something's wrong with you.
Right.
So, you know, so it's like, listen, if I call you, that's an emergency. If I WhatsApp you, I'm expecting a response in an hour. If I email you, I'm expecting a response in 24 hours. And if I send you something in stale mail, no.
Exactly.
But it's about setting those boundaries and understanding those things. And some of those things don't come with time and experience. And it's so difficult. It's so difficult.
And the thing for me is also, as leaders, recognizing, as I said, going back to that whole thing, I want my team members to be healthy. I want them to understand rest. I didn't know those things along the way. I didn't recognize how important treating my body with wellness in a well way was. And guess what? People don't need to make the same mistakes that I did, right?
Yeah.
So I want to talk to them. I want them to hear me. And guess what? Maybe when they're 25, they're not going to hear it. But, you know, you just keep planting seeds. And just recognizing, I just keep saying this thing. It's like I'm a broken record. We are whole people showing up every day from whole lives, right?
Yeah.
And I think the more people, the more that we get that as individuals. So that scaling thing, I'm about to launch a workshop, a 21-day workshop. And literally the first question is, how are you showing up today? And before we start the workshop, when I'm at a 10, it means this. When I'm at a 7, it means this. When I'm at a 1, it means this. Because for me, when I got this whole scaling thing, the difference between a 6 and a 10, if you try to operate at a 10, when you're really at a 6, that, by the way, is what we call burnout. And you keep, one day you can go, God, I'm at a 6, but I got to show up today for this. But if you keep doing that, that gap is what we've come to know as burnout. That gap is type 2 diabetes. That gap is infertility. That all the ways, because our body will speak to us, right?
Yeah.
And so asking people to do that for themselves, but also as leaders, getting to understand even how your team members scale as well. I'm super huge on this whole person leadership. I actually want to really write about it because I think it's so important. And I know it's so important because, as I said, at 39, I was staring a lot of issues in the face. I remember on my 40th birthday, my sister said to me, Danielle, I can say this to you now. You've lost 100 pounds. You're doing well. You're healthy. But I thought there were times we would lose you.
Oh, wow.
Let me tell you something. That, I mean, right now, that stands out so much.
Yeah.
And because, that's my sister talking to me. But I also know team members would have been at the whim of all my emotional dysregulation, because diabetes surely brings a lot of anxiety with it. Not, especially when you don't know that's what's happening.
Right.
Your blood sugars are dropping, they're up, they're down, etc. You're not feeling well, you're not feeling healthy, you're more irritable, all of this stuff, right? And then, of course, retrospective, we were like, oh, she had PCOS. Nobody saw PCOS at that point until it was, oh, wow, that was pretty obvious, But so many are living with stuff. And because we're not addressing our health, we're trying to get to the top of the field. We're trying to land that client. We're trying to make that revenue. And something, a couple of months ago, we declined 2 jobs. My team member saw it. She texted me, she said, why are we declining these jobs? And I said, look at the workload. I'm not driving you guys into burnout. October, November, December is coming. We always hit burnout then. This is August. Let's not start any earlier. Our revenue will hold us. And those are clients that will understand. And I explained, I said, we are at capacity as a team. And she actually said to me, like 2 weeks later, I totally forgot about it. She said to me, Danielle, if there was ever a time that I knew you showed up for us, it was making that decision, because your job is to make sure that the company brings in a lot of revenue, and we haven't done well for the past 2.5 years. So you're trying to make back, right, what we have lost, but you showed up for us. She's like, I had to go and tell the team that's what you did, and I was just like, we don't need it. I mean, we need the revenue, but I don't need any of you at burnout in August.
Of course.
I already know we're maxed for OND. It's just not worth it. A team member's life, it's just not worth it.
And that's the thing. I mean, I think sometimes it's so easy for us to sort of take long-term decisions based on short-term circumstances and not understand how that's going to affect us going forward, and realize that the whole thing is, like one of my favorite books is The Long Game, because it talks about that. Listen, we're playing this thing as though, okay, we're playing, we're done, but that's not how business works. Businesses go on for hundreds of years. And so we need to understand that, yes, I appreciate the quarterly earnings. Yes, I appreciate the annual report, but what are you moving forward with after that? Is there anything left after that? I interviewed Gina Wang. She's the CEO of Virgin Unite, Richard Branson's charity, and she's done something called 100% Human at Work. And it's a phenomenal thing about just figuring out, how do you, the same thing that you're talking about, how do you get people to show up as their whole being, and understanding that we are all human in this environment that we're working to produce something.
Absolutely. Yeah. That I love that 100% human thing. And I have to go and read about it some more. You see, the thing is, what I have a client, a coaching, well, it's just become a coaching client. And she got really sick a few weeks ago. She had a really bad flu. She comes back into our next call, and she's talking about all the stuff she's going to do. And, you know, she's making back time. And she said, I have so much more energy now that I got a break. And I sat there and I laughed a little bit. And she said, you know, it's like being sick, just it quietened my brain. And I was able to just come up with all of this stuff. It was so great. And I kind of laughed because I'm like, how many of us that ever feel like, you know, you've had 7 days of the flu and it was so great. And I understood what she was saying. It forced her to not show up for meetings, show up, you know, she had some quiet time. So at the end of the call, I said to her, hey, just one quick thing. You know, that 7 days that you had there, that was so powerful for you. How are you going to create it again? And she said, what? And I said, I'm not asking you to create the flu.
Right.
I'm asking you saw that having that time was actually so good, that gave you so much more this week.
Yeah.
How are you going to create that again? And she's like, I can't do that. I mean, what? I said, I'm not asking you to take 7 days off every month. But what you're looking at there, you just went to, but the cost of that, the cost of taking 2 days off. But what you're failing to realize is actually the gain you had. Because the gain you had taking quiet time, going into meditation, sleeping some more. Yes, it was prompted by the flu, but you had an experience of actually being able to show up more because you took care of your body. That's actually a gain. It's not a cost. And like, oh my gosh. And she said, but I wouldn't even know how to create it. And I said, well, let's get together next week and talk about it, because it's a mindset change.
Right.
But it's when we are forced, we shouldn't have to wait till we're forced. But many of it happens when we're forced, like I was. I was forced just to look at myself. I didn't want to die at 39, right? I didn't want to have type 2 diabetes. Like it was horrendous, right? To get that diagnosis, not because of the diagnosis, but because of what that meant. The truth came. I hadn't cared for myself, right? Yeah. And I know that a lot of leaders talk about, you know, as you said, the quarterly earnings and the, you know, debt, you know, net profit ratios and all of this stuff that I mean, I care about because I run a business, but I much prefer to say, you know, I have a team that feels alive, that feels great, that, you know, are rocking and rolling as their best selves. And let's hope that actually coincides with the client deliverables and, you know, how we need to show up with the best creativity for that client, you know.
So do you think that is it that you fail to take care of yourself physically, which then manifested in the physical symptoms, or is it that you fail to take care of yourself mentally that resulted in the physical manifestation of that mental? What, chicken or egg? What do you think?
Yeah, that's actually a super key point. And I used to, as I said, I was 222 pounds, and as Racquel said, I could take over any dance floor and dance for 4 hours or 6, depending on. But you know, as I said, after a while, that catches up with you. I had tried every diet under the sun, right? So this is going to answer your question indirectly. I tried every diet, keto. The only thing I didn't try was cabbage soup, and I probably just hadn't gotten to it. I hate cabbage. But what I realized when I lost the weight and why I decided to become a coach, it's not that I did bariatric sleeve. That bariatric sleeve helped. It's not that I was just in the gym every day. That was definitely, all of those are tools, and very, very, very good tools, right? I learned to eat. I learned about nutrition. I learned about rest. I learned about sleep. You know, after the age of 40, any woman, if you are not resting and you are not sleeping and you are not hydrating, in my practice, we go no further until we fix those. We are not losing that weight. It's just not going to happen, right? That's just simply how our bodies are working. What happened was, in that come to Jesus moment, was I realized I had to change my mind. And I'm known to say, the day I changed my mindset is the day I changed my life. It was working on who I was mentally, what was holding me back, what was standing in the way and by the way, the answer to that was me.
Mm-hmm.
But what about me was standing in the way, right? We talked about in the weight loss world, we talk a lot about non-scale wins. So whilst I started to lose weight like this, it was getting up at 5 o'clock every morning to meet my trainer. That was a mindset change, because I promise you, I didn't feel like it every single morning, right?
Yeah.
And yes, I had the fear factor behind me of diabetes. I was not going on insulin. That was just a big mission for me. But we don't need the fear factor, right? It was the mindset that then made me make different decisions and choices about my health, which, by the way, we got to non-scale wins. So whilst that weight was dropping off, all of a sudden, I was a nicer person. All of a sudden, I was laughing more. All of a sudden, my skin looked better. So I felt better. All of a sudden, I was calmer. My ability to handle conflict at work, handling a team member not showing up in their best self, because I didn't have the level of anxiety and irritability about it. I no longer had a period that was just lasting days and days and days and days into years. Those were non-scale wins, and those started in my mind. And the reason I know that they started in my mind, Racquel, is because I'm not perfect here. I'm not just over here eating kale and spinach and eggs every day and I'm just so perfect. But what I do know is that I have a boomerang. So when I send out, when it goes out, some bad habits and some old ways come back, and I just want to eat ice cream and chocolate cake, immediately everything that I have worked towards, the change in mindset, it's a new neural pathway. It goes, this is not how we operate. This is not the best version of Danielle. So that's why I say, I know it's mindset change. Yep, we can lose 20 pounds on keto diet in the next 3 weeks. Sure. I actually don't tell my coaching clients how to eat. We discover how eating and hydration works best for them. And then the weight comes. Our body goes back to what I call equilibrium. And in practice, some people call it homeostasis. And so whilst I'm speaking more as a coach and my journey in healthcare, I bring this up because a healthy leader is not spoken about enough, right? And the gains of having a healthy leader. And I know this because I have been a very unhealthy leader. I've had an unhealthy mindset. I've had unhealthy practices. I've had an unhealthy body. And now that I am more on the other side, I am the best leader that I have ever been is now. So I know it's mindset.
Oh, wow. Wow. That is phenomenal. Danielle, thank you so much for having this conversation with us. And, to say that you're a transformational leader would be an understatement, quite frankly. And I encourage people to Google Danielle, because if you Google Danielle and DRT and you see the work that they've done, you see the awards they've won, the things that they've produced. It's just, I'm always in awe of your work. And there's a post I ran into, or I have to finish with this story. So I went to the UN conference last year, COP26, and one of my colleagues was there, somebody I'd worked with years ago, and they pulled off this flawless execution of this launch of a product. And it's an absolutely globally significant launch that they have done. And I'm so proud of them. And I talk about it all the time. It's the Caribbean Development Bank. And so I said to my friend, I said, how did you manage to pull this together? She said, listen to me. Now, she doesn't know that I know Danielle. And she says to me, if you are looking for someone who on short notice with little time can execute for you flawlessly, hire DRT. I will send you their contact. I was like, I already have it. And then I said, 1 second for me. And I said, say that again. And I recorded it and sent it to Danielle, because it was, and I hear that kind of stuff all the time. And I've experienced it. I've lived it in executing campaigns with you. It's just been, I'm a big fan.
Thank you for that. I'll just not counter. I'll just support that story. That project was actually the start of another bit of mindset change for me. Working on nourishing projects that, and I want people to know this. When you are working 8 to 10 hours a day, 30% of your life, is that job nourishing you? And that job right there kicked off in my brain. I like to work in things that develop people, that develop nations, that develop countries, that develop communities, and the joy. So we will work, because we're saying, okay, the client is going, like, this is like the UN here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Behind the scenes, nobody will ever really know. We didn't know Racquel would have known it was us. Nobody would ever know it's us, but we are nourishing our nation. We are playing a role, and that works for me. So I'll tell you, even now with just the work we're doing at DRT, it's all about this. We stop and go, does this nourish? Does this nourish our community, our country, our people?
Our planet. Because this thing is globally significant.
Exactly. And that's the kind of work that we're doing now, that we're looking about. Anytime a CDB RFP comes in, we're like, yep, we're on it. We're there. And then even sometimes saying, actually, we can't serve that well, but it's so important. We are actually going to take a step back, because we're not going to do a bad job on that one. Because yes, it will nourish, but will we give it the best? Right?
Yeah.
And I really want to encourage people, is what you're doing every day of your life nourishing you, nourishing your family, nourishing Jamaica, nourishing Trinidad, wherever you are?
Yeah.
Does it nourish? And that's actually my word for 2023, nourish. And I really do mean 2023, even though we're still in 2022.
You're ready. You're ready.
I'm ready.
I love it. All right. But thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining us for this conversation today. And I hope I've gotten some really amazing messages on Instagram and some really feisty comments on TikTok, actually, which has been quite entertaining. But it's been such an honor to share these phenomenal leaders with you. And thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for sharing. Thank you so much for continuing to show up. And we hope to see you again. And if you haven't already subscribed, please subscribe and let us know how we're doing. Thanks so much. Bye.